poison puffball. So puffball, actually this is in the book. I thought it was an Earth Star. So pigskin poison puffball is called Scleroderma. That's the genus, the scientific name, the Latin name. There's a bunch of different species. I don't know how to identify them as species, but they have a really thick skin. That's why it's called the pigskin puffball. So the edible puffballs that are allowed for commercial harvest and sale do not have a thick skin like that. Pretty much the whole thing, and it's not good to breed a whole bunch of those in. It's just not good to breed any. The edible puffballs, the skin will deteriorate and pretty much disintegrate with the inside, just like this has here. Does anybody know what a baby puffball looks like? We can pull it up here. Let me see that. Y'all can pass this around. Just be careful and don't like squeeze it really hard. You know.
Don't breathe it.
But feel that. They typically end up having. That's not a defining character.
No, it's not can I, it's should I.
That's true. Because I can.
You are can.
Yeah. Well, they all turn dark like that. But they only are edible when they're white. So let's see.
Want to taste this?
I think to a certain extent. You want it?
Here, hold this down. I mean, you can wear mine.
Thank you very
I
much.
have all these too.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
Don't leave the pieces behind.
Yeah.
Well, like this is way too gone, right? But I mean, and this is poisonous anyway. But assuming it wasn't, I've eaten them when they're slightly tan. We found the same mushroom. Was that 2 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago? Yep. Yeah, right there, same spot. Oh, thank you. I think we got
It's my first time going hiking, y'all. First hike.
That's the genus it's in. It's not the same mushroom as the false turkey tail, but it's closely related. Have y'all heard of a turkey tail?
Mm-hmm.
So a turkey tail is like the most researched medicinal mushroom. And it's a cool one. We might find some today. But
That's awesome.
there's also a mushroom called Sterium austria. At least that's what I've always been told it's called. It's definitely the Sterium genus. It looks very similar to a turkey tail, but once you learn the difference, it's impossible to mistake the two. We'll just pass some of this around. You'll see there's like zonations of color on the top. And this is a good opportunity too to teach y'all about spore stuff. So one of the big identification characteristics on every mushroom is its spore-bearing surface. So, you know, a lot of mushrooms have gills, right? Like a traditional mushroom has gills. Some mushrooms don't have gills, though. They still produce spores. So they might produce spores inside of a tube. And that would be like a pore. And if you look at the bottom of a mushroom, it'll actually have little holes in it. Other mushrooms will just be smooth on the bottom, like this one. I'm going to pass some of these around. So if you look at the top, there are the zonations of color. And that's why some people confuse mushrooms like this and closely related mushrooms to a turkey tail, and they call this a false turkey tail because the turkey tail also has those color zones, rings going through it.
You know, just turkey tails are bigger.
Turkey tails can be a lot of different sizes, but typically, I mean, they can get bigger than this. Yeah, this is small. This is a smaller one. This isn't really what I would call a false turkey tail, but some people might confuse this one with a turkey tail.
You want to touch him? He's okay.
So a turkey tail,
Yeah, surprise.
this on the bottom is very smooth. The turkey tail is going to have little tiny holes all on the bottom, and the turkey tail is also going to be white underneath. And the turkey tail won't bruise either. If you like damage the white bottom, it won't turn brown or anything like that. Species we might see some here. I'm sure we will. That are the true false turkey tail. Called Styrian Austria.
Is this the turkey tail, Alan? Is that the turkey tail with a white on the side?
I doubt it's turkey tail.
It's by the Styrian.
Okay, so this is the false turkey tail.
Well, I thought we had it.
Well, no, actually it's not. Sorry.
Okay.
This is something even different. This is called a velvet tooth polypore. I'm pretty sure it's. I don't know the common name actually. It's called Tricaptum biforme. That's the scientific name. And it's not in the books, but then this one's a little bit older. But it looks similar to on the top to Styrian, but on the bottom it's actually got tiny little spines instead of a smooth surface. So it's kind of rough like sandpaper. If you pass it around, velvet, I'm sorry, like
You done?
like a lavender color. Common names are not something that are important to learn. I don't recommend it. If you're going to learn anything, try to learn the scientific name. But here's more of this one. Y'all holler and see anything else.
Come on.
Great so far. Look up too. Don't forget to look up.
Yeah, some of them are really cool. But some are like different
This is a really pretty one.
Yeah.
And it's called a turkey tail, and if you look at it, you'll see why. Because it kind of looks like a turkey's tail. And a turkey tail, so it's always got these zonations of color. The color's not always exactly the same. Sometimes it has more of a tan overall appearance. But always going to have these little holes underneath. So I'm going to pass this around, take and flip it over, and you'll notice it has pores. So the type of mushroom that looks like this is called a polypore. Many pores underneath is what it means. And the pores are where the spores are made, inside of those. And so the mushroom on top is usually kind of velvety and fuzzy as well. So here you go. And that's a really nice one because it's still kind of fleshy. It's not like really old and dried out. I would say that's like a nearly perfect turkey tail right there because it's not underdeveloped either. It's like a perfect mushroom. And I'll pull it up here. Y'all can pass that around too.
We did this for the first time.
Oh yeah, what'd you think?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like a cold vegetable salad thing.
Let's turn it over.
No, I boiled them first and then chilled them.
You can eat them raw.
I thought you weren't supposed to, so I didn't.
They're one of the only mushrooms you can.
Okay, cool.
But you usually
Yeah, then I put it on and chill them. Carrots, cilantro.
That's what I'm gonna do.
And,
Yeah.
I
I think that seemed to be easy.
that size are smaller, less than that big. But they're like the huge ones, I cut them up and all.
That's what we were asking.
Supposed to be an immune system.
Which one is that?
maybe we can go back.
Which one's yours? That's our earbud.
Mushroom around, holler if you see something or have any questions. If I'm too far off, pick it up and we'll identify at the end. Yeah, this is an old, decayed reishi. It's in the Ganoderma genus. It's also a medicinal mushroom. It's supposed to have immune properties. This one's allowed for commercial harvest and sale. Yeah, so y'all can pass that around too. It would usually be white on the bottom and more like a gold or red on top, but now it's like brown on the bottom and white on top. But it has little pores on the bottom. You can tell bugs eating it. Budding out here, and yeah, that's the same one. It's also kind of old. It's not quite as deteriorated as the one you're on the phone. It's in the book. Does anybody? Let's see. There it is.
Turn it
I'll
over.
pull up the ratio.
Are you selling that stuff, by the way?
Yeah. They're usually 50, but we're doing 25% off everything for Black Friday right now. So, and that's the certification manual. So if you want just a mushroom book, you can look through the back. There's actually you can get like just like identification books for a little cheaper, a little bit. But that is really focused on getting people certified.
Oh,
So it's kind of like basically until like 2 months ago, it was not allowed to sell wild mushrooms in Alabama because Alabama state law requires they have to be a certified wild mushroom ID expert to sell it.
okay.
But they didn't have that.
There was no class. Yeah, so I made the class. So that's what it was.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, thanks. So it works. Notice. Yep, definitely puffball.
Oh.
Oh God.
It's kind of waterlogged, I think. We'll throw this one out. That was not what we were expecting. You see how they're waterlogged and the spores, the inside turns into the spores on these.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just a waterlogged puffball. Kind of floods out in here too. You can pass that around. But basically the inside turns into mush. Well, usually on a puffball it turns into like powder. It's the spores that are actually developing inside. But yeah, that.
Oh, this is one y'all threw away?
Yeah, it's gross. Yeah, that's why I threw it away. I've heard of an ink cap mushroom.
Yes.
Okay. So ink caps, they like melt. They turn into ink.
Oh, that's cool.
And so apparently Hitler used ink cap ink to sign his letters. And his like, closest people or whatever knew to look at the signature under a microscope, and if it had spores, if it was written in spores, it was really him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know the black one. She's a little harder because of her name. Normally she'll like disappear on the ledge. So it's got all kinds of different. Daisy.
Hey, want me to show you around one time? Let me know.
Where'd she go?
Passing around the book, and I was showing the reishi in here, and there's actually a few different species, so we'll pull that back up. So you'll notice there's like 4 pages.
Rishi?
Yeah,
So that's the one we just found. It's called the golden reishi. It's a southern variety.
So I started
Ganoderma curtisii. It's really common.
and about a month ago I got up with
Ganoderma sessile is called that because it usually doesn't have a stem at all.
contacted me and they were doing a guy
But sometimes it does.
with a biologist.
And then this one's called Ganoderma tsuge, and tsuge is
where they
the
have
genus name
biologists
for
and
a hemlock tree.
mushrooms.
And this one's usually found growing on a hemlock, so that's why I call it that.
The other one, can you do anything with that? Yeah.
Yeah, all of these are considered medicinal. Now, the reason they're so sought after and expensive is because you can only find them in the wild. You can't grow them. You have to have that association, or the fungus has to have an association in order to produce mushrooms. At least we haven't figured out how to manipulate them so they will produce mushrooms yet. So the lion's mane is a decomposer. Some people even consider it slightly parasitic, meaning it will attack like a living tree. Wow. And so you always find it growing on like a log or a stump or a tree. And a lot of times they're up way up there. Sometimes they're kind of low. Sometimes they're So when you pick a mushroom, it's like picking an apple off of a tree. when you pick a mushroom out of the tree that you're picking it off of, it's called mycelium, and it's living either underground or in whatever its food source is, like a log or a tree, whatever. And so when a spore germinates, it creates haploid mycelium. And it seeks out other haploid mycelium that it's compatible with. When it comes together and meets, the mycelium starts growing together, but the nuclei don't actually come together. So each cell becomes, rather than diploid, true diploid, being 2N, it becomes N plus N. Each cell is now double nucleated. So it's like two organisms living in one. And so when a mushroom is formed, a mushroom is actually formed out of mycelium. Mycelium grows into a knot, forms a mushroom, and then on the gill surface or in the pore or whatever, basidium is formed. It's a specialized cell, and on the end of this basidium, a zygote forms. And the zygote exists as a single cell, and it immediately undergoes meiosis, forming 4 cells, which are the spores. And those get released, and the whole thing happens again. So it's really trippy. It sounds like looks like it's probably a Lactarius mushroom. Lactarius references the fact that this thing exudes like a latex, like a white milky substance. And some of these are allowed for commercial harvest and sale. This one, the stem has been broken off of it. I'll pull this one up in the book so y'all can look at it. But this one's a little old too, but you'll notice on the bottom, it almost has like these stains of a white fluid. It's not gonna really come out anymore because it's so old and dry, but I will show y'all a picture of some of these things exuding the latex. If I can find them. And by the way, you can taste any mushroom, don't swallow it, but it's actually an identification characteristic in some field guides that you buy, the recommended books, for instance, in the back of my book, it'll be like, taste it, is it bitter? And if it is, a lot of times it'll be like, that's one of the toxic ones, don't eat it. But you can always like just mushroom up and touch it to your tongue.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't eat it. And just be careful. And there's no mushroom that can hurt you by touching it.
I kind of like it though. Right?
There's some that smell like fish and different, like there's all different characteristics.
Smell and taste is
fruity
like really
and
important.
it's very
Yeah, I wouldn't mind my
I'm having everybody off this much.
I smell it.
So this was, I think he said a polypore, not a toadstool.
Okay.
So polypore, like an overall type of.
Oh my god.
Or at least people think.
Hold on, I think I
people think.
hold on, I think I got
It does. It smells like something.
It's growing on pine, which is interesting. Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting. Sometimes you'll see mushrooms, like a turkey tail will grow like that sometimes. It'll be like, yeah, I don't know what that is. I think it's a Laccaria. Hey, that's cool.
Oh, the ghost pipe.
Yeah.
Taylor told us about these.
Ghost pipes. Yeah, so this is a plant. It's not a fungus, but it parasitizes a fungus. Who is that? So I'm pretty sure it actually parasitizes that Lactarius that we just found. And so you'll notice this plant's not green. Most plants are green, right? Well, this one, the reason plants are green is because they have chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is what they use for photosynthesis. So plants make their own food using photosynthesis. This plant's not green because it doesn't make its own food, because it actually steals food from the mycelium of a fungus. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the Lactarius fungus that we just found that it steals from. I'd have to double check that, but that's why this this plant is white, because it doesn't need to make its own food. It's stealing sugar. Russellas, yeah, they're in the same family as the Lactarius. Yeah, Russellas. I think people use them for like tinctures and stuff. I'm not sure if anybody eats them. They're pretty. I mean, I would eat them if they're edible. I don't know. I might have to look it up. Not sure about that.
This is the story that is like.
Yeah, that's what I said. It smells like kind of rose up in my
They're disgusting.
A lot of people like
Kumquats are like nothing but
medicinal.
sour.
I don't really
It's
know.
just sour. You use it for zesty. Yeah. But it's all in the babies.
It's like the Uno reverse card.
So well.
You know what I mean? Like, because they kind of steal things from other people, and then like the plants are like, no.
That's pretty.
You want to see the mushroom? Hold it out.
Where is it in
Yeah, I'll
relation?
definitely go check it out.
Okay. Gotcha.
So where is it in
Pretty
relation
close
to
though.
physical? Me when I'm trying to explain.
This one red.
A lot of
You came
times I
all the
use
way
Panama
over
City.
here? Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, look at the one.
It's $5 a car.
Did you guys come from There's like a waterfall that falls into a big pit. So do we. It apparently belongs to Florida, but I'm skeptical.
How many years ago?
Well, you've got to come see
As
this.
I got into foraging, I stopped seeing them everywhere, dude. It's like the first one I saw.
You can pass that around. That's the mushroom we're looking at. It's called Amanita persicina. It's the peach colored variety. Discard the water every time.
Okay.
Because it's got compounds in it. There's ibotenic acid and mucimol, and ibotenic acid converts into mucimol, but ibotenic acid is toxic, whereas mucimol is actually the psychoactive part that I was telling y'all about. And you can boil that stuff out with water if you didn't want to, get grandma drunk on mushrooms.
So you say you don't necessarily know the health benefits of the tincture?
No, I mean, people, whatever you get out of the GABA agonist effects of it, certain people say it's good for headaches. The most beneficial thing that I keep reliably hearing about this mushroom is that when prepared into like an oil, or tincture works too, but I think an oil is the best way. Used topically, it's really good for pain. So people that have extreme arthritis are actually seeing a lot of relief using this mushroom.
Okay.
So we can pass it around so everybody can see it. But y'all can kind of see, I mean, does everybody get a picture? Does everybody see what they wanted to?
Did you guys see this photo? We good?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I don't think I have
Here we go.
You might have a sharp knife.
Alabama.
So y'all can see the bulbous base again here. Did I done this you up there, sir? Done this up there. The bulbous base is typical of the Amanitas, and then the sac that I told you that the mushroom is sitting in here, the volva, V-O-L-V-A, is like very ragged on this mushroom, and there's also a ring around the stem, and all of those characteristics are typical of Amanita. And so when we cut this mushroom, first off, before we cut it in two, that's a smaller one, and you'll notice it still has more of this universal veil remnants, but essentially the top part of that little sac at the bottom of the base was completely attached and was completely encircling the whole mushroom. And it would almost look like an egg when it was a little bit younger. But this is what's left of it now, these warts on top. So y'all are welcome to pass this around if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm
Show
gonna
everybody. And then we'll take this knife. I'm going to cut these in two. Another characteristic of Amanita, man, these things are gorgeous. They're
Yeah,
just
that one's pretty.
Let's see, it'll be okay. It'll be
got
pretty
it?
this way.
It feels wet. It is right there. I mean, you're under the ground.
Yeah.
Usually when you find one bunch, you'll find a lot. So
Yeah, so they're probably
in this small
around.
area, we may want to just look.
And they're always with pines too. This one is.
Okay.
Not all Amanitas, I don't think, are always with pines, but this one is. And so the gills are free as well. So if we look at the it's a gill attachment. And the page you're on, if you look at the right figure, do you see that's a cross section? So gills can be attached in different ways to the stem. And so if they're not attached to the stem, they're called free gills. So you see how it kind of like goes up and attaches at the top of the cap? That's typical of that mushroom. Now sometimes they have notches in them. Sometimes they go straight across and they're just directly attached. And other times they run down the stem. And that's called decurrent. But you can look at that picture in that book if you'd like to see. There's a figure on the right, and it's like the same thing we're looking at, but the mushroom is white there, and the gill looking back there.
It's so cute.
Little baby starting.
It's like a paste.
You see this?
That's a like beefy mushroom. It's pretty substantial.
Touch it, Emma.
That's looking like
You touched it?
Yeah.
Get a feel of it. Touch it.
I do way too much with my hands. My first 2 minute stories that people get that makes me on thing.
Feel weird? Uh-oh, I got a piece of my nail. Jesus.
She was like, what kind of ring you want?
Get it off me. I just
I
wait.
just thought it was Walmart.
That's neat. You want to see it again? You want to smell it?
Yeah.
Smell it. Don't have a smell?
Not really. It doesn't feel like it's stuck in my finger.
Where's that?
a hidden element.
Hidden element.
I'm pretty sure. They smell really like mushroom. It has spines on the bottom though. It's a really pretty one. I'll pass this around too. They smell very.
Like if you cut them out, like it literally.
Yeah, I just had them in my backpack.
Yeah, usually rain is mushroom. With rain in a bunch. You know, and so the Delta is a wildlife management area.
And then they're just showing off how like brittle the gills are. You like burn your
You got this one. You're yummy. Yeah, I see it. Watch your step.
Close to where you work, you say?
Yeah, we.
Where do you work?
So I work at this.
How do you grow these? Are they trying to grow anywhere?
Pretty
Or
much,
you have to
yeah.
sit them in like a specific room?
Not really. You just cut a big X on there, and then you soak it in water for a couple hours, and then put it on the countertop at home.
Okay.
And it'll just grow. And what we have today are pink oysters, so they'll grow, and it's actually a pink mushroom. So it's best if you grow it inside. This variety right now is best indoors because it likes a little warmer temperature. So it's pretty cool.
And what this is the same thing?
That's a blue oyster, so it's really similar, but this one's a pink oyster. But they're both really great culinary mushrooms.
How much are they?
These are 5 pounds of mushrooms or so. And then it may even grow like 2 or 3 times. So like you pick it, and then it will grow again, and then you can put it out in your garden, and it will keep growing mushrooms. So
That's awesome.
super
I might
cool.
get one. Oh, is that one typical? How much is it?
We only have one of these. She ordered this one ahead of time. Yeah, so but it's
Beat her up and take it from her.
we'll be back here in 2 weeks. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and if you message us, some people make like bacon, like vegan bacon out of it, or
Sold.
Tacos.
and tacos, nachos, spaghetti, steak, anything you want.
Just chop this
Okay, cool. We have,